Nobody's listening, right? Hi, Andy.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Is anybody listening?
Oh my gosh, are they listening? This is going to be a special international reviews. We got a lot of reviews last week. Some we might have to circle back on next week because they were from Dirty Americans. And I only want to shout out our international listeners.
Yes.
And I also realized we've been missing a lot of international reviews. I found all of them.
All aggregated in one place?
Yeah. I think so, but I just grabbed some from since like we rebooted a few that I just want to shout out just so people know that we hear them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Sadly, what were the countries we really were hoping to figure out last week?
Iran.
Nothing ever from Iran.
Okay, well, they are a little busy right now.
True.
Putting it lightly. They have a lot going on. Again, solidarity for all of the incredibly brave women and men who are protesting, and especially the young people. Belgium.
Nothing from Belgium.
France
we got.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I feel like those were the
Okay,
three.
cool. Well, here's a quick. Let me run through some international reviews. This one from Australia, Kath, listening. So glad patron saint miniature mouse sent me your way. Listening and binging and laughing and tearing up. Love your laughs. Love when Annie interrupts. And love when Elizabeth says, I could cry right now. Your stories are so relatable, even from across the world. So glad you mentioned Australia in this week's episode.
Oh.
Je vous écoute.
Écoutez.
There you go, from Susie Blue from France. So invested in this couch saga. Still listening from Paris, XO.
Well, the couch saga, I feel like we've turned a corner and we're going to make it happen.
I hope so. This is from Nicole Clare in the UK. Glad to have you guys back. Longtime listener since before you announced your first pregnancy. We live in the UK and have similar age kids. I now listen while working in the little gift and coffee shop I opened in 2020 during lockdown. You guys crack me up. Don't ever stop and give me a call if you're ever over this way.
A little gift and coffee shop?
That's amazing.
That sounds so delightful.
Wait, Nicola, I feel like I've seen her on Instagram and her shit's dope.
Oh, my, Nicola Roland?
No.
Oh,
maybe it's the same person, maybe it's not.
Oh, it's definitely the same stuff.
You have a coffee shop and gift shop in the UK. That sounds so cool.
Her stuff is so great. Wait, I actually do want to shout her out, so let me make sure I have that.
I'm going to keep going.
Okay.
Listening and LOLing. This is from Rozdog Oz from the UK. New to the podcast and loving it, especially the chat about dishwasher tines up or tines down. That's what we're here to do. This is from Alec Cakes. Addictive, great guys, funny and sweet chats. Totally recommend. From the UK. Here's another one from the UK.
It is Nicola Rowland, Rowlands. She's in Manchester. Her stuff is so cool.
Yeah.
If you're in that area, go check it out. And let's see what her shop is called. I think it's just her name.
But do you think that's a different Nicola though than the Nicola in this review, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, interesting. Might be two awesome Nicolas in the United Kingdom.
That is true.
This is from Across the Pond, UK. We'll have you laughing and crying. Double whammy. This is the podcast that got me into podcasts.
Aww.
Andy and Elizabeth are hilarious, great senses of humor, won't hold back on advice, while also being genuine and sensitive when those harder issues come up. It has brightened many a dreary day in the office. Would recommend listening from the beginning, but also mixing up with present day podcasts. Feel like I know them now. Is that weird? Anyways, yes, have a listen.
That is amazing.
This is from Jim Daw from Ireland. I'm very happy that this exists. This podcast will make the world a better place. Thanks, guys. That means a lot coming from Ireland.
That means a whole heck of a lot.
This is from Bex in New Zealand. So stoked you guys are back. Like a giggly, warm hug. P.S. Discover period undies. They will change your period life, I promise. And yes, Bex, we're all over the period undies over in this house, and they have been a game changer.
Loves them. I am curious, I don't need to get into that.
your period?
Well, I know there's like this huge market for women with like period undies and leaking underwear. I wonder what the market is for men.
Oh, well, a friend of mine's dad, I can remember in high school, was a little leaky, and he'd wear like a panty liner. So there may be a market. I don't know if it's like a huge market.
Oh,
What were you talking about?
that is it. But there's something. This is exactly why this needs to exist. Like if there could be briefs like Thinx, the period panties, that are just like you feel like you're wearing briefs, but
Yeah.
there's an absorbent part of it. Because hearing you say my friend's dad wore panty liners made me sad.
Okay.
I mean, listen, we all go through whatever.
Yeah.
I wear panty liners, but I feel like it might be a little rougher for a grown man to. It might bum him out to have to buy panty liners instead of just wearing briefs.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's a good thing. Maybe this is a opportunity for us or one of our listeners. If you're in the
pass that baton.
undergarment area, but we'd like a cut at least.
Yes.
Okay, last one. This is from Anna from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm listening from Trinidad and Tobago. I just discovered y'all from an Instagram story that Monica Padman did recently. Shout out, Monica. I'm an armchair, and now I'm a proud nobody, too. I think we're changing that to somebody's.
Well,
is that right?
You know what?
Or both?
It's both.
Great. Absolutely love you two. Have been binge listening all week. Love the role plays and get into laughing fits with y'all all the time. Much love and keep chatting. That's from Anna.
Aww,
so how fun is that?
That's so amazing.
Some recent international
Wow,
reviews.
thank you all.
And maybe we'll circle back on these international, I don't know, every few months, kind of see what's happening around the globe. And next week, I do feel like there's some really funny reach out reviews recently. So we'll do those next week.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Listen, this is dropping on the 9th. I hope everyone's good out there. Apparently, on the 8th, there's some astrological heavy-duty stuff happening.
That's the midterm elections? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I mean, that's not the astrology part of it, but I am anxious given the astrology alone is enough to, send my butthole up into my tummy. But the elections on that very day, I just suspect this is going to be a very intense week. And I want everyone to know we're recording this on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't know how things have shaken out with stuff. But I do. And can you tell me, like, I've noticed you're pretty even keeled.
Yeah.
And you've had kind of a mood.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a rain cloud over things right now.
Maybe. I feel like my mood was I feel like I know exactly why I was in a bad mood.
Why?
Today. I have been having some issues with medication. I switched medications and no bueno.
Oh, really? You haven't even told me about this.
Yeah. So I didn't take any medication today. So I got to figure that out. And then this morning, I just wanted I didn't get any time alone yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then today, I got to go on a little drive to go get something for the studio, which that was fun. But then if I'm going to be honest with you, I mean, it's pretty funny. Then last night, we had dinner with some friends, and we were talking about, there was actually someone else that showed me, I think this is like an app called like Life 365 or something that basically shows you where all your friends are, like location-wise. But
horrifying.
Anyways, we were just talking about that and figuring out that like you can track anybody you want, you can share on your iPhone.
There's an option on your iPhone to share your location at all times with someone, or you could share it just for the next hour or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Which,
yeah.
Andy, I think is very common for like partners and families to do that. You and I have never done that. So it was like a whole new world. Now there's this whole different thing right now, which is really dangerous, where people can put these little circular disc tracking devices.
The Apple AirTags.
Apple AirTags. And this is like a PSA. If anyone ever on your phone, like you get some sort of alert of
an AirTag trying to like pair with you,
an
or
AirTag pairing with you, or someone tracking you.
yeah.
Take that seriously, because there have been all of these horror stories now of like guys slipping these into girls' purses at a bar and then being able to track them home.
Yeah.
And so you need to take that seriously. Don't just think it's some weird fluke thing and dismiss it. However, we've been having fun about, well, just actually.
Oh, just that it
I
is
turned
nice
it
that
on for you to be able to see where you were on this little adventure.
Yeah, which is really, it is handy so that now Elizabeth and I can know where each other is at all times and stalk each other.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys called me and you're like, you're in Hollywood. And then the kids were on the phone, and it was just like a very long conversation, which was fun. But I was just like, I just wanted some me time. Plus the fact that you guys were stalking me. It's like, you knew
This might be a
exactly
problem.
what intersection I was at. And I was just like,
Wait, let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, I have two things to say about that. I would be so annoyed if I were you, because we were legitimately on the phone with you for like 20 minutes.
you would have hung up after 1 minute.
Well, that's why I'm like, why didn't you just say,
'Cause
guys, I have to go?
It was really funny in the beginning. And then it started getting a little annoying. And then we were also like trying to get food. And then I was also on my drive. I didn't want to have to go pick up food. That was another reason why I was like, I seemingly like I didn't want to get anything, because I was just on my nice little drive.
But
and then I had to go on a mission.
You can say that.
I know.
Why do you
but
not feel like you can say it?
Oh my God, because there were 3 other humans on the phone, the family going, we're so hungry. You just passed this amazing place. Like, that's why I was begrudgingly being like, I don't know. I don't want to stop there. So I was pushing back. It was also so early. It was 10:30 and you guys wanted lunch, which
Daylight savings.
That'll get you. So you get a bit of a pass. But anyways, that was the world I was in. And then I got home, and then I just realized I'm just not going to have any time to myself
You
today.
do look like you're getting emotional.
No, and then I got like a physical tomorrow, which means I can't eat. Like, I'm already thinking of that. And then,
Yeah.
anyways, I was
This
just in
eclipse is coming in hard for you.
Oh, don't. Fuck you and your eclipse.
Well,
but
listen.
anyway, that's what I'm saying. That's where my bad mood was. It's
Well,
all small stuff. So dumb.
this tracking thing might be a real issue for us, because it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, there's that situation, which I'm sure won't play out. I mean, that was kind of a one-time funny thing.
Yeah.
But there are going to be so many times when I go and see where you are, and I'm like, oh, you're by that thing. Can you go do adding to your list?
Oh,
and
see, that's so
vice versa.
I would never even think to do that. So it will be funny if you. I feel like that's like a once every 6 month thing that you'll even think to be like, is he still at that? Let me look. I don't think we're
Okay.
going to be thinking about this. Like
Here's
that.
another issue, though, I have with it. Now, I love that it does make me feel safer in the sense of like, you know, it's nice to know that you know where I am
Yeah.
should anything happen.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid, or, you know, I get hit in the head and I forget who I am and where I am or whatever.
Yep.
But there are times, and I think you're like this too, when you're speaking about like, for you and me both, it is very emotionally important to have alone time.
Mm-hmm.
We both love each other. We love our kids. We love our family time. Feel very grateful for, you know, the great relationships we have. But I think you and I are both kind of extroverted introverts. And you and I both need alone time. And there are times when, like, the rare times, especially since the pandemic started, when I have the house to myself feels so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just so calming. Like, I don't know, it's restorative to have even like an hour alone.
Yeah.
And you don't very often get that either. I'm rarely out of the house. And this is all to say, there's also something to me about, like, you know, I'm writing this pilot right now, and I feel like I have a lot of work to do on my own time, separate from work. And if I'm going somewhere to, like, write, I don't mind talking about after the fact, but I love being like, I just go and I don't need to, I mean, they're like one of 3 places I'm going to, but there's something nice to me about like if I were going to go to Figaro and sit there and write for a few hours and it's kind of my little secret about where I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have that anymore because you're going to know.
But when would I ever be looking?
Well, that's, I think, why we're different. I'm going to look at this all the time.
But like, did you have that thought today when I was going?
Yeah, I was excited to see where you were. You were going to go get something from Craigslist. I had no fucking idea where you were going.
Yeah, I went to the Rite Aid on Fairfax and Sunset first. You might have saw me stop there.
Well, it was funny because when I first logged on, I saw you were near Westwood Drive or something. And I was like, he's in Westwood? Like,
where's Westwood?
Oh, I don't know. It's somewhere in Hollywood, okay. I guess. But anyway, it was really exciting to me.
Well, the one exciting thing about it was right when you called me, I was on this stretch of Santa Monica, literally thinking about like, this is the ugliest fucking stretch of road. And like, LA's so gross. And remembering when we first moved here, and I think we were looking for like a used appliance store in Santa Monica. And I was so depressed that day because I was like, this is it. This is why people come here. Like I've heard about Santa Monica Boulevard my whole life. And I was just thinking about how shitty it was. And then you called right then and you knew exactly where I was. And I was like, it's so shitty right around here. So that was fun.
Let's talk about Los Angeles. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I was just trying to think about the us stalking each other thing. I don't know. I think it's great.
There go our possible affairs, although many of them are online these days.
What do you mean?
I think that probably most affairs are taking place
in the metaverse.
Yeah, like people aren't traveling to a hotel. I mean, it's very different from the olden days.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean? I'm guessing it's all online sex.
No.
Yeah.
No. Do you mean meeting online and then going to fuck in person?
No, I think it's just over the internet.
I'm sure there's plenty of that. But people are getting together body on body for sure. Good old fashioned.
Did you hear about the guy who, I think I told you about this, but I heard about this on the radio. This guy was on OnlyFans, and I guess had paid a sex worker, like a subscription situation, but it was one-on-one with her, like he'd paid
a
lot of money, or depending on, I don't know how much money it is, but
you can charge whatever you want, so it's a limit.
Let's say it's a lot.
Yeah.
But she noticed on him that he had like a lump.
Oh, you did tell me this.
And she was like, hey, on your testicle, like that, you need to get that checked out. And he had cancer and he had it removed and he recovered. But he attributes his life to that moment.
What a beautiful story, I think.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was, is there a bad part of the story?
In my mind, he was married.
If he's not married, that's a great story.
But what a complex thing. Like, if you had your life saved by what I consider to be cheating on me.
Mm-hmm. Wait, you feel like me paying someone else
Don't do this.
is cheating?
Are you kidding? Why are you saying someone else? You don't pay me, first of all.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I'm saying if I paid someone else, a sex worker.
That's implying like the way I pay you.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant.
Yeah. Obviously you're joking, but
you know what? We were at dinner recently.
Hang on, just don't move on so fast.
Yeah.
You obviously were, Andy, this is something I want you to work on. This happened last night too, where you make a joke that doesn't necessarily totally seem like a joke.
Okay.
And then you just move past it where the person on the receiving end is like not 100% clear.
What's the joke I just made? Because I think I was keeping going in that train of thought, and I think now you interrupted my thought, and I don't know what I was talking about before.
You said, you think if I paid someone else, that's cheating.
Yeah. I'm keeping with that thought.
Okay.
It's a little different than. So we went out to dinner with someone. I don't know where you were. Like, you might have gone to the bathroom, or this wasn't last night. This is in the last few weeks, though. You might remember some of the story. But someone was telling us about like a couple. The wife had found out like the guy had been cheating a lot and been visiting sex workers of all shapes and sizes, genders. I don't think you were around. I think you like went inside or something. But and we started to talk about it, me and this couple, and I was like, that's an interesting one, because the guy, like, let me phrase it like this: that if it was you, okay, that I found out that you have been going to see all these sex workers, and like, a lot, right? Mm-hmm. You're not having any typical affairs, old school
like
style emotional affairs.
Having a relationship.
You're just like, you have
out
a sex addiction problem, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, and you're spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
It would be that would be a big deal. That would be a big bummer. But almost how extreme that example is, mm-hmm. I was like, I could almost see, not almost, I think I could see that being an easier thing to get past, mm-hmm. than if you were like, I've been, having sex with someone I've worked with for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I think the sex addiction one, the you paying people one, I'd be like, oh, you're really like, this is a big problem. There's something else there's a bunch of different things going on here. Mm-hmm. This almost, it's out of your control. I see a path back, where the other one, I'm like, bye-bye, like, get the fuck out of here.
Okay. Well,
that's what I was trying to get towards.
This is great news.
You have a look of relief on your face that I've never seen my entire life.
Oh, how wild it is that you're saying all of this. I wasn't going to bring this up.
Yeah. That makes sense though, right?
Yeah. Oh, I feel the same way. But, and I know that I've said previously that weirdly I could see a way that you could come back from having had a secret YouTube channel where you're filming you tickling me. I mean, there are all sorts of weird things that can throw wrenches in relationships, but
yeah.
I would have a very hard time coming back from all of it, I will say. I
do too. I truly feel, and I think we've talked about this before, mm-hmm. if you ever had like a single slip up, mm-hmm. and let's say this can only be like a kiss or something, okay? Don't tell me.
Oh, yeah.
I do not want to know. Don't tell me. Just feel that guilt in your body every single day. But because it would, I don't know if I want you to tell me. It would fuck me up so bad.
Yeah.
That like, I just don't want to know. If you genuinely feel really bad about it.
Well, it is that sort of thing, and like that great Christmas movie, Love Actually, that I'm sure has held up completely well over the years.
That's a good one. I like it.
I do like Love Actually.
Oh, the story with the guy with...
The story
that is a weird storyline in there.
Where the wife says, it will never be as good as it was.
Oh, I'm thinking of something else.
The husband has a necklace. She opens a Joni Mitchell CD.
Yes. Great scene. That is a great story in that movie. I think that's so very good. Cool.
And I mean, there is an element of, Yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to know, but I feel weird giving. It's almost like I feel like I'm giving you permission to have one slip up or something, which is
No,
not
no, no,
the
no.
case.
That's not that. No, 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 no.
But like that idea of we will never be, it will never be as good as it was or it could have been, kind of, which is such a bummer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just really not worried about that for either of us.
I'm not either.
Okay. Good. Great.
Especially if like, but just to clarify, I guess you do think like paying for like a one-on-one OnlyFans thing though.
It is like such a, I mean, it's such a gray area, especially. Do you know what I kind of am not into? And
I'd love to hear.
Can we have a candid conversation about this?
Okay.
I mean, you feel free to.
I don't know what the subject is yet, so I can't
Okay.
tell you how candid it's going to be. And what candid? Do you just mean real?
I mean, real.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be sex positive. I've talked about this before, kind of feeling conflicted about this.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to feel like sex positive. I mean, the thing I'm not conflicted about is that sex work should be legal. It should be supported. Like, there shouldn't be, like the women who do sex work should have rights and protections and all of that stuff. But I do think by and large, it continues to be an unbelievably like toxic arena for women, and it perpetuates this idea. I mean, I think by and large, the porn on the internet, even the stuff that's not quote unquote like rough or violent, is still pretty violent and like demeaning against women. And it gives such a fucked up picture of what sex is. Like, I'm very concerned about the conversations we're going to need to have with our kids about like viewing hygiene, kind of like.
What's that?
Meaning, okay, hygiene is like taking care of yourself, right?
Okay.
I think there needs to be like a conversation about like exposure to porn and exposure to things.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and that they are going to have to use judgment and control. And then I kind of resent the narrative that just all men without like just all men watch porn. And it's just like, you have to accept that. I'm like, is that true? It feels a little, it's just a big bummer to me. And it does seem like I'm sure that the way porn is going to shape intimacy for the next generation is going to fuck shit up. Like, and it's just in some ways, I mean, it's a corner of the internet. I don't watch it. I mean, so I don't know that much about it. And
I would guess. I think you have a lot of points, but I think also you're probably in the minority of women. I think a lot of women watch porn still.
I'm sure they do, but
I'm just saying, and also I agree with most everything that you're saying, but I think there's also caveats to, or I also think we're living in many ways, a very horrible time, what you're saying of what this is going to do to the next generation. We're also living in a very interesting time. This whole era of OnlyFans is I'm very curious what that does to sex positivity in general, and how it will shape the porn industry, because in many ways it's a much, much, much safer mechanism, because most of these women aren't having, I mean, there's a lot of people I would assume on OnlyFans having sex with other people on OnlyFans.
But it's like in a more controlled...
Well, there's a lot of women that can just be by themselves and have their OnlyFans channel and show what they want to do whatever they want to do.
The way, I think so many women who are in whatever porn you're seeing, it's not,
It's, I think it is, I don't know, I think we're probably entering an era of some things getting better and then some things getting worse, which is probably how it's always been across history. But
But here's my question for you.
Yeah.
Do you buy in? And I guess in some ways you're saying it's true for women too, that like just all men are going to, and period. Like every man just does.
I've never really thought of that. But I think if it's like, has a guy that you walk past on the street watched some sort of porn within the last year, I think 100% yes, probably.
What?
Or like 98% yes in the last year. We could pull up some surveys. Maybe next week we can do a little dive on this. I'm sure this data is out there.
It's a bummer to me. It really is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there no... I don't mean to put you on the spot also, because I know,
Yeah, no, I'm totally...
two of us.
I'm candid right now.
Okay. But like, don't you feel... And this is, again, tricky territory, because I don't want to sex shame anyone. I don't want to kink shame, but actually that's not true. I think they're like, knowing what we know, I guess, about porn and like how violent it is and how demeaning it can be towards women, and that like, yes, I guess in a perfect world, every time you watch porn, it's two consenting adults who blah, 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 but that's just not the reality.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Isn't that a turnoff? When you're a man watching, like a good, like ethical man watching this and seeing what's being done to women and like how they're portrayed, and also knowing like, I don't know, it kind of gets to a deeper thing where I'm like, are all men just these like violent, like if there were really no rules and no laws and no moral anything, would all men just be going around like, pillaging? And it's just...
Right.
I mean,
I kind of understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like that same argument could be used about so many things. It's everything you're saying is like, that's a big bummer. Like even talking about like the kind of porn you're watching and like, what is the true backstory of those people in that video, right? Like,
yeah.
So yes, that's very true. And like, that's definitely crossed my mind before. And like, I'm totally there with you.
And also knowing that like whatever you're watching, probably if that were real life, in most scenarios, I feel like in online porn, that is not necessarily like a source of pleasure for the woman.
This is also kind of weird. Like, when was the last time you saw some porn? Like, I have this idea just from how you're talking right now that you are imagining this like certain specific type or genre of porn or something.
No, it's not a type or genre. It's just like seeing, I mean, I guess...
there's like
not like a specific thing I'm looking at. And I know you're going to mention there's this big, like, better production quality, blah, blah, blah. But
there's like porn for women is like a big thing.
I know,
now,
but when you go to, like, by and large, and I feel like that's the thing that guys always bring up is like, it's changing. And it's great. But by and large, like, all of the world's porn that's on the internet is, I think, unbelievably harmful and it's all told through the male lens, and a male lens that I find incredibly upsetting. Like, it's not about, I mean, I don't have one that I'm thinking about right now, and like any of the porn I've ever seen, which is probably very little, to be honest. But I know when you go to like Pornhub or like, that's something that really scares me. You go to one website, I don't know if Pornhub is like this, but like one porn website, and the whole, up in your face is all of this like stimulation stuff of all of these different like thumbnail pics of stuff happening.
Yeah.
And it all looks like really young women who, and I'm trying to separate myself from like my, Catholic shaming upbringing
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
my heart goes out to them because I'm like, I guess if I were putting myself in their shoes, I would hate what was happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, do you know what I mean? Like,
No, I
it's
definitely
hard to,
do. And I think there's a lot to back up what you're saying for sure. But at the same time, I think having those kind of judgments about people that have an OnlyFans account is probably very unfair and would be very upsetting.
Oh, I'm not
to
talking
hear.
about OnlyFans though.
Right. Okay. But I don't know.
I brought this up because I wanted to know, and you answered the question, which is, like the idea that men just, all men watch porn, like is
let's look this up.
Is
next week. I'll pull the stats on this because I'm sure there's a lot of studies of like, have you watched porn in the last month or last year for men and women? I'm curious what the difference is.
But then there's also like, I mean, I think it's so harmful in so many ways, and I don't think I'm pulling out of my ass. I know that there have been studies about this, and like, because instead of like Playboy magazines where there's just an image and you use your imagination and you set the stage around it, it's so overstimulating, like it desensitizes you to it, and then people seek out like crazier and crazier stuff. And I think it was Billie Eilish was talking about how like viewing porn as like some of her first exposure to sex, which is now probably the norm, really fucks you up. It really does. It's like, and also for girls, I mean, it does for boys in ways that I think are probably more obvious, but for girls to see that, it, to me, with what is out there and what is probably being viewed and shared by young kids or whatever.
Yeah.
As a young girl to have that be your first exposure to sex, I think just reinforces everything we're trying to step away from. And I mean, I feel like we're in this weird time in feminism where I feel like there's awareness of oppression against women. I mean, very clearly, like in our country right now, we are second-class citizens in many states and soon to be many more. And like with the Me Too movement, there's awareness now. And then yet we consistently get told, but it doesn't matter and no one cares. Like if you are raped and then you report it, I don't want to deter anyone from reporting anything, but as the system stands right now, I understand why people don't. And it's like, I don't know, as a young girl seeing that, it just feels very of rape culture and of that, and a reminder to a girl, like, your purpose here is to please him. And it seems very harmful.
Sure. So what do you have to say though about, like, I would say this like movement in pop culture of women artists like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, that are very, very explicit. How do you feel about that? And also of this like wave of like porn made for women by women, like.
Oh, I love it. And I mean, the Megan Thee Stallion stuff, I'm such a huge fan of. And it's interesting because I've been in situations where I've been talking about her with men, and they are so horrified by how, I mean, they don't use these words, but for essentially being like how slutty they're acting and like how, and I'm like, literally you're only upset because it's told through the female lens. Right. Like she's embracing her sexuality the way she wants to, and just because it's not like through the male gaze and you want a woman to be this way when, whatever, and not this way, and is so upsetting to men. And I'm like, you're not upset about these other songs that men are singing, objectifying women in such demeaning heinous ways because that's the norm. It's like,
Right.
I love that. I wanted to ask you something, and this is where feel free to be like, I'm opting out. But
Yeah.
are you able to curate what you watch in a way that makes you feel good about it?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think so.
Like, how would you, because we are going to have to talk to our kids about this at some point. I mean, I feel like years ago I was like, I want to say to our kids, you're going to see porn, you're going to watch porn.
Yeah.
But we in this family do not watch porn that is demeaning to women, violent. But I'm like, I don't know if that's I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we should get a little bit more educated on how to have that conversation,
Yeah.
And it's a shame they don't teach more of that in like schools even. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's a whole thing too of like if we culturally got to a place where there was more equality in general about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so taboo. I think there's arguments to be made that like there's other cultures where like topless ads are fine, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe even our French friends do that kind of stuff, right? And kids are exposed to that at a much earlier age, and it's like it's not being sexualized in the same type of way, sort of. And I think you'll hear the argument that like we're so repressed and it's such a fucked up system
like free
here.
the nipple. Like kids in Europe are there are topless beaches and it's not sexualized. The problem is like in America, if there were a topless beach, it just would be sexualized. Like everything in our, what's that, the conservative religious, I'm forgetting the words, but everything here is women are so sexualized. I mean, it's like breastfeeding mothers, is so outrageous that she would feed her child without suffocating her child with a hot blanket all over it. It's like, no, our breasts are not here for you, you fuck.
Okay, well, I think a lot has to do, and it's interesting. I wrote this down last week, something I want to talk about that we didn't get to. I talked to a good buddy from Iceland, and who I hadn't talked to in a while, who'd been traveling back and forth between Japan and Iceland for probably the last 10 years and loves Japan. And they're a part of the LGBTQ community. And I was like, what made you decide to finally bail on Japan? Because I know how much they love Japan. And one of the things they said was like, number one, they realized that Japan's gender equality is so fucked that like Japan is something like 130th on the list of countries from top to bottom. Iceland.
Wow.
I think it's like Iceland and Denmark go back and forth every year for being like number one.
Oh.
And interestingly enough about Iceland, they're famously known that women typically hit on men more than men hit on women in their culture.
Interesting.
Which is like an interest. If you wrap your head,
I love that.
But it's really interesting because there is equality there.
Yeah.
But that's something that like we can't really grasp here. By the way, America's not good on that list. We're nowhere near as down in the hundreds, but we're way down the list.
Oh, sure. Well. Yeah.
But so I think, where was I going with that? That was just something that I thought was so interesting talking to them about this. And also in Japan, you can't be out and gay really. Like,
really?
There is like, you can find your community, but it's not like people aren't out like they are here or in other countries.
Right.
Which is something you just don't like. I mean, obviously you hear about it in, the countries we hear about, right? But Japan, I was like, that had never crossed my mind, really.
What religion, by and large, do you think Japan is?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer either. That's interesting.
But,
because so much of that is steeped in, obviously, religion here, homophobia and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I feel like so much of that, I truly am very ignorant about this, and I might sound so stupid, but I'm like, in some places, I'm thinking of Japan as possibly an example, but I could very well be very wrong, where it's just more culturally like not accepted. And I know there are cultures where, I mean, they do a much better job of respecting their elders and taking care of older people. And there's like a family kind of system of respect and caring for each other that I feel like heterosexuality supports. Is like a direct, you know, that sort of family is how that works versus homosexual relationships. I'm wondering if there's like a different cultural reason for it to be taboo than just
potentially, for sure,
a book that's several thousand years old. That
right. But getting all back to all of that though, like if you think of, I would, it'd be interesting what like women's perspective on porn in Iceland is, and also just getting back to stimulation in general. We also live in a time that it's like absurd some of the things that are on TV during prime time, like when it comes to violence and
yeah, well, it's really interesting. I will say, writing for a broadcast show that, I mean, we don't really push too many of those boundaries because ours is very like relationship oriented and stuff like that. But the things that are very much allowed, and then the things that require lots of conversation and people going to bat for, is really interesting because so much violence, not in our show, but like on broadcast, so much horrific violence, murders, gun violence, which is another thing, like, you know, similar to smoking, that it used to be every single movie and TV show had the character smoking who was cool. And in fact, even recently, not on the show I work on right now, but for something else, I was like dying to have this character light up a cigarette because it just spoke to the character in the moment in such a way. But I'm like, Hollywood has had a huge impact on smoking by like making the conscientious choice to stop having characters smoking.
yeah.
And similarly, I'm hoping that Hollywood will start to do the same with guns and gun violence. Like, we're kind of a mirror to the society.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it is kind of important to tell real stories of things that happen, but also I feel like we can err on the side of being salacious for the sake of like drama and whatever. And there are just guns everywhere and so much gun violence.
But it's, I would love to know the stats on that though, because like when we were growing up, even when we were kids, there were plenty of primetime shows with guns, and like I don't know how much that is a part of the equation. I mean, you know, there's been
I will look up. I feel like it is a part of the equation.
But it's just so interesting that like that stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about that.
I think we have like a responsibility to not. And it's not even glamorizing. I mean, with smoking, it really was glamorizing, literally. But it is. I mean, and I think all of these cop dramas and, like, murder dramas and everything, and it kind of brings that, it goes to, like, our obsession with true crime. Mm-hmm. You know, which I dig it too, although the kind of true crime I've been listening to, you know, like that podcast, Something Was Wrong, which I've kind of stopped listening to, I think, but because I just got oversaturated.
Yeah.
But like, that is, I feel like, true crime that's helpful, and it's almost a PSA, like hearing how people basically, like, red flags to look out for when you're engaging with people. But like the true crime of like murders that happened so long ago, and no shade to them, obviously, because there's clearly an appetite for it, and I feel like people are like processing their own darkest fears and potentially traumas and stuff. But like, my favorite murder, even just my favorite murder, the title is very like, okay, someone was murdered. And you're saying it like, it was my favorite one. You know, it's like the way we approach certain things, I feel like I'm hoping that we'll have kind of a new lens through which we take responsibility for it and have more awareness of like the messaging and things like that, which is really hard. I mean, we have a podcast where we talk about nothing, and I probably sound so stupid 98% of the time, but so I don't want to put too much pressure on us. You just totally zoned out?
No, I didn't. I just I don't want to be too. I feel like I always take the other side of things. I don't know, but I think I'm thinking too much of like. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but it does feel a little. Like it does feel a little bit of a reflection of like your Catholic upbringing and stuff like that, where I feel like there is some of the stuff we're commenting on. I feel like younger people probably would be like, you guys got it all wrong. Like
what? Well, by the way, now I'm in my head about, you know, I love Georgia with the My Favorite Murder stuff. I think that they actually handle things with a lot of empathy and awareness.
But I mean, that's a really interesting example because it's a show that a lot of people are familiar with.
Yeah.
And it's a really funny show, but it's about, I mean, they're really funny.
They are funny.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Neither of us have really listened to it.
I've listened to a couple. It's been ages.
Yeah, me too.
But I think genuinely, they're really intense stories a lot of time. But I think there's some levity throughout. Which that I don't like that. I don't know. You make a really interesting point, but I don't. For some reason, I don't have a problem with it really. But I do what you're saying. See what you're saying as this bigger comment of like some of these things that are dark and a big part of types of stimulation people seem to really gravitate to. You're kind of saying it's like kind of fucked up how almost comfortable we're getting with some of this stuff. Or
not even comfortable. I think we seek it out. Like it hits our like receptors the same way. But it's not in a like, oh, that's so terrible. It's like, ooh, what happened? And I do too. I totally get it. What's the HBO? Is it Dahmer? I feel like this is a perfect example.
Recently the Netflix controversy, the Ryan Murphy Dahmer series.
Neither of us have seen it, but it kind of combines everything that we're talking about, which is like true crime, and it's very salacious and whatever.
They make him look really sexy. And,
yes.
Well, they came under a ton of flack for it. They got tagged as LGBTQ on Netflix. Like that tag was on it. But yeah, fucked up. Like,
but see, here's the thing: if that had been told in a different way, like if there was a docu-series about it, you know. It is LGBTQ. Like, it's about, basically, it's a plight of, gay men who were targeted and murdered just for their mere existence. Like, but because of how the story is all in the details of, like, how are you telling the story and what are you appealing to in the consumer?
Well,
and if you're appealing to like, ooh, look at this, like here's this sexy guy and it's murder and it's like sex and all of this stuff, like that's disgusting.
Well, and it is interesting too because then you're also like Ryan Murphy, what is he famous for? He's made a bunch of big shows, right?
Yes.
But like he's known for kind of over the top stuff, right? But it's like, fuck man, if this is your art that you want to make. And this is the statement you're making, and it turns out that like millions of people like it. Like, whose responsibility is it really? Because like that's a weird question. That's a reflection of what's going on in the culture, right? Ryan Murphy's not creating this.
I think that's
issue, or does he have a responsibility?
I think, well, yes. I mean, he does, but I don't expect him to take it. Like, that's kind of bringing full circle. The reason I brought this whole thing up to begin with porn, it is a reflection of what society wants. And that's what bums me out, particularly with men and porn, is like, that's the reflection. Now, Ryan Murphy, I'm like, you're a gazillionaire. You're making this thing. There might be, some controversy around it, but it doesn't matter because the controversy is only bringing even more eyeballs to it.
Yeah.
And it was like the number one Netflix thing or whatever. Like, I'm not expecting him to at any point go, you know what, guys, they have a point. Like, no, it's not on him. I mean, I think the responsibility really should be on Netflix, but they also they're trying to make money, and this thing is making the money. And I feel like it walks the line between what can they get away with and what can't they while maintaining their brand. Like, it all has to do with this bullshit stuff. It doesn't really, it just feels a little bit like no one really cares about taking society in a better direction. Now, if there's a show like Abbott Elementary that does that just by virtue of like, but it's also a great show and it's a big moneymaker, awesome. We need more shows like that. But I mean, I think I'm just depressed by all of it. Like, it's all a little bit depressing right now. This eclipse, I'm telling you, is a doozy.
You know another cool thing they do in Iceland, I thought?
I want to hear more about that.
My friend was telling me, when you're in middle school, in the summers, there's like a summer or two that you kind of go to work for the country. And it's like kind of like camp, but like you're out landscaping, making like neighborhoods and like streets look nice. But I was like, that's fucking brilliant. And you get paid. Like it's like your first job, but it's like a country program. And I was like, that sounds fucking amazing. I wish the food
was better there. I could totally like.
Yeah, the food was not very good.
We could live there. It's pretty cold and stuff.
I've been there twice, and I do have a very soft spot for it. But in that like, I don't know. That's just interesting.
What is it with those countries up there?
Yeah, like Denmark. All those like Nordic.
Yeah, the Nordic countries.
Uber white countries.
I know that is the thing. There's not that much diversity.
Yeah.
Does Iceland not really have that much diversity?
There's Joe. In Reykjavik, he has a store.
I feel like I just heard a yell. Okay, you know what? We thought we heard our kid yell. It wasn't our kid. That's great.
Some other kid.
Some other kid. They're just playing.
Having
tragic
moment. No, they're fine. Everyone's fine.
Everyone's fine.
Everyone in the neighborhood's fine, right?
Okay. Well, what a doozy today was.
Oh, I want to talk about one other thing real quick.
I'm going to feel really weird about this episode.
Great.
No, tell me I don't need to.
You don't need to. Listen to this. Something a little lighter. Oh, there's two things I really want to talk about. We can talk for a few more minutes, right?
Sure.
All right. One, I was so bummed. You ordered some stuff from Kiehl's.
Yeah.
And I was so bummed when it showed up because it said L'Oreal. And I was like, L'Oreal? And then I Googled it. L'Oreal has owned Kiehl's for like 20 years. Mm-hmm. And also, like, L'Oreal doesn't have the best rep when it comes to like animal testing and stuff.
You're right.
And when I looked up Kiehl's in animal testing, there's a little bit of a gray area.
Yeah.
But that was a bummer. I was like, I thought, I don't know. I didn't know. I just didn't think it was a L'Oreal play.
Corporate greed. This is a perfect segue from the Netflix. By the way, I love Netflix, and I think it is a great company, and I'd love to have a show there.
That'd be sick.
Let me just say that.
All right, the other thing I want to talk about real quick, we'll end on a much lighter note.
Thank God.
Our son has been into Pokemon for a while, but for whatever reason, the idea of getting Pokemon cards finally clicked for him, which I feel like we've mentioned over the last year, and he's never seen him interested, but then all of a sudden he's like...
Into it.
And the other day we were watching people on YouTube open up Pokemon packs and getting rare things and freaking out, which is delightful part of the
Very
internet.
fun.
But so I took him to a fucking card store, like a Pokemon card store.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been to one of those kinds of stores since I was a kid when like baseball cards were the rage.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a short span of my life where I thought I could collect baseball cards and, you know, went to a baseball card store a couple times. Wasn't for me. But so we go to the store and there's only one guy working and he's chatting it up with like a father, son, older son that have some rare card of some kind. And they're like, we're talking in the $1,000 range. And they're talking about, should they auction it or sell, like all this stuff. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting, but I'm also like, how long are we going to have to wait here? Right. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, he wraps up and then there's another guy in front of us. He gets taken care of quickly. And then the guy comes to take care of us. And I just kind of assumed, I don't know why, and tell me if you would assume the same thing, that like this might be not a frictionless transaction, like that the guy might have a little attitude or like we're in there to buy, like, I don't know why. I just thought like we're complete newbies, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
guy,
but you're there with our cute little boy.
That's very true.
Who's like, go ahead.
Anyways, the guy couldn't have been nicer. And also, I was like, this motherfucker has it figured out. Mm-hmm. He is living his best life, was just such a sweet guy that has a store full of all these fucking Pokemon cards and Magic the Gathering, all this stuff that this guy clearly loves. And it was just a delightful experience. And it brought me so much joy seeing my son get so excited about these cards, but also see that this guy had built himself his little universe and was so happy and such a delight. And why did I think, like, I was worried because like we don't know anything about it. Like there might be some like,
that's also just your kind of like mechanism.
Go fuck yourself. Just kidding.
It's true.
But anyways, it was just like I was like, oh, I can't wait to come back here.
That's great.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll start collecting Pokemon cards.
You know, it's so fun because we watch so many of those videos of adult men mostly opening these packs of cards.
Why are adult men into porn and Pokemon? Tell me!
But it was amazing because it was like pretty much the compilation of the time that they open the most rare card and lose their minds with joy. And it is so much fun to watch. However, I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, yeah, we're watching this one.
It's so
But
good.
like, this is a gambling addiction. Like, these guys who are opening these cards who have $50,000 cards in their whatever, as you said, like, some of them, I don't really understand the Pokemon cards thing, but you said, like, some of them, the pack, because the pack is from a certain time and whatever, is unopened worth 10 grand.
Yeah.
But if you open it, it's worth nothing except for what
Unless
the cards are
unless you
worth
get a
in
card.
it.
Yes.
So these guys that were watching opening this and freak out with joy, like in a weird way, I was thinking, like, we're showing Otis this guy, like, Otis is going to want that hit of serotonin where you're opening it, you have the $50,000 card, we're seeing this, but what we're not seeing is, Mom, I can't make rent this month. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you see their background is like Pokemon, everything. Well, these people have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yes, they got the $50,000 card, but that's only, you know, they're doing this all for that moment, first of all, on the emotional level. Then that moment's over.
Yeah. And then you're back to square one, gambling.
Yeah.
But what's funny about those is most of the videos we were watching are from...
They are very fun to watch.
They're amazing. But they're like known Pokemon YouTubers, right? So they have millions of followers, right?
Oh.
So that's also inspiring because like the one guy that has one of the best ever...
is it the guy who's shaking?
Yeah, when he's putting it in the like sleeve to protect it. yeah, he has something like 2 million followers or something. So he's built a whole business on his love for Pokemon cards.
That's cool.
Which is so great. But yes, at the same time, though, for every guy like that, he's inspiring thousands of other people that like should not be spending money on these Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
God, I might have to get into Pokemon cards. Dude, I feel like I just lit up there at the end. I've never understood it. Now it's like you gotta catch them all. Are they talking about the cards?
have you given a few weeks ago we talked about a hobby for you?
Yeah, we just unraveled it just now.
No, but I don't want a hobby that's going to be so expensive.
Oh. But you could, maybe if I was just spending $5, like
Your
getting
face right now.
a pack a week, one hit a week.
You look like an addict right now.
You know what my thing might be? No, I was going to say drum machines. I've had that new little drum machine I got. It has brought me so much joy. I've yet to use it on anything professionally or even tried. So it's this nice, just creative, fun thing that's adjacent to what I do. But there's no pressure on like when I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but yeah. I could see myself. There's like a drum machine I've always wanted, the one Prince used, the Linn drum. But I could see like that. I wonder if that could be the thing that I would really get into and collecting and playing with. Because it's like a thing that I enjoy doing, but there's not this like pressure on it at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that just came to my mind.
It makes perfect. Yeah, it's very clear.
I've been having so much fun with that drum machine because I've been sitting down with it with no agenda just to have fun and make weird beats. That's always fun just to make.
Oh, you saying make beats just remind me. God, I'm such a negative Debbie Downer today. But I was at a coffee shop very recently writing. And I was like, and now I know that like, I don't think you're annoying, but I think that I can come across as being really annoying from time to time.
And what do you mean? As a person?
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, that's nice. There was this family. There was this couple who sat down next to me, and they had probably, I want to say, like a year and a half old. And I was like, oh my God, I have found the most fucking annoying people on planet Earth. And they weren't even doing anything particularly annoying, but also something seemed like off about them.
Yeah.
And the mom, it was like a young couple, this was very hipstery, whatever.
Yeah.
The way they were talking to their baby, I was like, do you know your baby? Like, it was so confusing. It was so over the top and felt so performative. And it was almost like it was performative for each other. And then the dad was talking to the baby. Everything was at like 3 times the volume it needed to be. Ugh. And the dad was like singing some, I don't know, weird hipstery song to the baby super loud. And then the mom's like, you're gonna get some daddy time. That sounds great. And then the daddy's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, puppy, yeah. You wanna hang with daddy while he makes some beats? You wanna hang with daddy while he's making beats? I was like, what the fuck? It was very upsetting. And then they moved because her stroller was like in the way, and I was like, thank God they're not right there.
I have this funny theory about that age of like parents when you're like have a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old. Do you remember how you would have like if you're in the line at like a grocery store, it would always be like older people and be like, oh, mine are in college or in high school. It goes quick, right? the people that never say anything to you are like people our age that have like 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
We stop interacting with that group of new parents. We don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And they being in that age, they don't want to have anything to do with people that have 8-year-olds either.
Yeah.
It's like this weird time where there's like a divider between parents.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, well, this is actually, I was at the social event and someone was showing pictures of their like 8-month-old adorable baby, so cute. And there was someone there I hadn't seen in a while, and they knew Teddy and Otis when they were little. And I was like, oh, well, if we're playing this game, let me show you pictures. And it was so funny because the person with the baby, you could tell, like, in their minds, they were like, why are you showing pictures of
exactly
that age kid? It would be like,
exactly.
Let me show you a picture of my sister. Like, it's such a different mindset. You're like, we're showing pictures of cute babies. Like, we don't need. It seemed like they were confused as to why. I mean, I was really just showing it because the person there hadn't seen them in a while. But like, it was such a good reminder. And I was like, oh yeah, when our kids were little tiny, and you get tons of attention, like everyone loves a cute baby. Yeah. If someone was like, oh, I have a 7-year-old or even like 6-year-old, you're like,
who gives a shit?
So,
and you know what's funny now is that in what is the instance that people say anything about your kids now when you have like an 8-year-old? The only time someone says something in line at Target is usually, wow, they're well behaved. Like that's the only time.
Well, that's nice.
It's very nice, but
shooting daggers because.
You're right.
I mean, we do have a very well behaved.
But you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that would be the reason anyone would say anything.
Right.
Whereas when they're, little babies, like, oh, look how cute. Trust me, time goes fast.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
All right.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.